Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the 55th episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. I am Marta the medium, psychic medium, angel card reader, and your host. And today I am joined by Celeste Frenette. Celeste Frenette is a soulful business coach, writer, and best-selling author of A Season of Spaciousness. With a background as both a registered nurse and naturopathic doctor, she brings a unique lens of compassion, creativity, and insight to the entrepreneurial journey. Through her programs and mentorship, Celeste helps heart led entrepreneurs bring their dreams to life. She's here today to share wisdom, encouragement, and I'm sure some practical tips to help us all grow with both softness and maybe some strategy. I don't know. Celeste, welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you, Marta. I'm so happy to be here.
And if you're new to the podcast, I just wanted to let you know that it is a perfectly imperfect conversation. It's not scripted. So we're going to see together with Celeste where this conversation is going to take us. Hmm. Shall we start about? I'm just curious about your book. I'm just so drawn to the title. A season of spaciousness. I'm wondering because it speaks into such tender. There's something tender in the name of that title. So I'm just curious about that book. What motivated you to bring that book into its physical form? I want to say, and what's the story behind it?
So this is a book that I had been writing for years, and I was married at the time, and I remember sharing my book with my husband at the time, and him just saying, it's your first book, you've got to get it just right. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. If people don't like it, you've ruined your chance. And instilled a lot of fear in me about not being good enough and having to have it just right. And so I tucked it away and went through a process in life and in my marriage where I began to really be honest with myself about the relationship, about what felt right, about what didn't, and um, needed to end that relationship after a period of time. And when I did, what I found was this immense spaciousness of freedom to allow my voice to start to
Mm,
become the louder one, to start to listen to my soul and trust it without needing to hear that voice of doubt or that voice of criticism, and began healing. It was such a difficult decision, as I'm sure so many people can relate to walk away from a relationship. I had been in that relationship for 28 years. And my daughter was just a year old at the time. So it was a decision that didn't come lightly, but took a lot of courage and a lot of me seeing what was rather than what I wished was there. And
mm,
the book started to change from what I had written in the past. And I started writing new things about stepping into alignment, about really trusting yourself and loving yourself and making those choices that, even though they may be hard, are true and right for yourself.
Thank you for sharing it. I have that question about that courageous act of you making that heart-based, soul-based decision to leave your marriage. Would you be able to talk a little bit about either your internal process or any support network, or was there any support network when you were making that decision by listening to really to your heart space that this was the right time to finish that relationship and to move on? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. I had been in therapy for years and we had tried as a couples therapy, but of course, both people have to want to and both people have to fully show up and do the work. And it wasn't.
Mm,
So I continued on in therapy just on my own. And it took me years to come to a point of realizing my own worth and not prioritizing somebody else's happiness or keeping that steadiness for somebody else over the inner turmoil within myself. And how to reconcile that. And my mentor at the time really supported me a lot in beginning to imagine, because I would imagine, oh no, what if I leave and he's not okay? Or what if I leave and the children are not okay? And my mentor at the time helped me to imagine, what if I leave and things are better? What if I leave and
Mm,
thrive? So instead of imagining the worst case scenario, what if I started to imagine the best case scenario? What healing is possible if I take a stand for my soul? And when you take a stand for your soul and you're being so in integrity within yourself, whether somebody realizes or not, you're standing for their soul too. And they can either choose to, listen to themselves and turn inward and do the work that they need to do for themselves, or not, but you're not abandoning yourself. And it got to the point in my marriage where I really started to feel that I didn't want to be on this earth anymore because it felt so painful and so hard. And I was on a
mm,
walk one day, just kind of talking to spirit as I do. And
mhm,
I really, I want to die. And spirit said, your marriage needs to die, not you. And I,
mm,
oh, things need to die. Things need to die. That's why I'm feeling this death. There is death, but it's not me. It's just these stories, these relationships, these patterns in my life that are ready to go. And
mm,
I can continue to live on and really thrive inside of myself and feel um, more peaceful, more happy, more supported, more at ease internally, knowing that I was doing what was in the highest good of everybody by really listening to my soul.
mm. Thank you so much. I got chills all over my body as a confirmation from spirit when we were talking about that decision. And then what's important, I think, perhaps you'll be willing to talk about death and grief and loss, because this is what has just popped into my mind, that we can um talk about the death of things, of relationships. It doesn't have to be a physical death of a person transitioning to the other side. So I'm just curious about, how have you supported yourself when you were going through? Well, have you ever had a sense of loss after you left, and how did you support yourself with the grieving process? I'm curious about the death of your marriage.
Yeah, it was an immense sense of loss because it had been such a long-standing relationship too, right? But with any relationship, there's an interweaving, and there's
Mhm.
sometimes a part of losing yourself. Like you sometimes hyperfunction or over accommodate for the other person, and pieces of you are lost. So as much as there was a grieving for a loss of the relationship, there was a grieving in seeing the ways in which I had abandoned myself for so long, and then learning to re-love myself into welcoming the pieces of myself back, and two, looking at those pieces and asking myself, were those ever even mine? Where am I amidst all of these shattered pieces, and deciding which pieces belong and how to welcome them back. So it was just a journey of a lot of reflection, having that support, having the energy healer, having the therapist, having those people by my side too, doing the writing, doing the relearning how to nourish my body and just give myself the foundations so that I would have that steadiness in my body and in my spirit to
Mm.
process it all, right?
Mhm. And right now, with your clients, do you work mainly with women, or do you work with both women and men? And I'm curious about, how do you support your clients now? I know, like, you've just shared about your experiences. So I'm curious how you help other people to maybe find their own senses of freedom, how maybe you help them to love themselves and to tap into that authentic self.
Yeah.
Mm.
When I was a naturopathic doctor, I noticed that people would come to me that they'd tried everything, and they'd been to so many different doctors and specialists. And sometimes as a naturopath, I was the last resort. I was like, well, I've tried everything and nothing's worked, so here I am. And No, there are supplements and herbs and all of that that can address in a similar way that medications can address. But what I found profound was when I would say, what's your dream? What's your longing? Like, what does your spirit want? If you could do anything, what would that be? Just to find out if there are pieces of themselves that they've been suppressing, only to find out that maybe they were in an abusive relationship, or maybe they were in a
Mm-hmm.
just draining them, and there was something burning inside of them that needed the space to be able to grow and be able to come into being. And so I started to ask different kinds of questions, and that's what led me from my naturopathic work to focusing on this soul work. So now I work mostly with women, and it really is that, like, what pieces are inside of you that want to be birthed, that want to come to life, but circumstances or past choices are um, creating a lack of space for those things to thrive. And how can we nurture you and nourish you so that you feel you have the capacity to invest into your dreams and your desires, and to remember that those come purposefully, that those are part of.
Thank you. Do you think you could take us back for a minute to your work as a nurse? Because this is what has just popped into my mind. I'm curious whether there are similar experiences with the patients that you had uh, before, while they were transitioning, about whether meaning of life or anything that's been happening inside, the way you've been having now with your clients. Like, what have you learned about? Um, well, anything you would like to share, whether about the meaning of life or about loss, grief, when you worked as a nurse.
Yeah, it was such meaningful work to me. I loved it a lot, to be by the bedside of people as they were passing, and to walk them through that journey, being with them for the last few months of their life in palliative care. And I think what it taught me is that there is there is only this at the end. There's only love. And
Mm,
so you start to shed as you get to the end. It's like everything that you've carried that doesn't actually need to be yours can go. And what I started to notice was this releasing of clearing out that old and focusing in on what was most important. And it was my last patient ever who I was with at the time, when just going through that journey with him. And as a nurse, you're quite rushed from patient to patient, and there's not
mm,
of time. You have to be prompt and be about the business. But I remember feeling that he was going to be passing soon. And that day I turned off my pagers and I went to his home, and with the intention of giving him as much time as he needed. And he started to ask
mm,
questions. What do you think it's going to be like? Do you think I'll see my dad? What will it feel like when I stop breathing? Just all of these questions. I didn't have the answers, but together we just walked through it. And he passed that night. And I
mm,
got in trouble with my supervisor for being late for my other clients, but it was this internal alignment for me that was like, no, I'm not late. I was where I needed to be, and this is where I need to focus my energy. So it taught me to let go of all the things that don't matter, of all the things that aren't truly important, and allow yourself to prioritize now what
mm.
what matters to you, what would matter to you at the end.
Mm-hmm. And how can people support their loved ones when they're transitioning out there? Because you've got that beautiful experience, you had that privilege to assist your patients during their final journey while they were crossing over. So for anyone who's watching and maybe they're now supporting their with a friend or a family member, and they know that the person is about to cross over, like how they can support that person, but also how they can support themselves.
Mm-hmm. So, in terms of supporting that person, I would say it is much harder when it's your loved one compared
Mm-hmm.
when when you're a nurse and you're working with somebody. So I found as a nurse it was much easier to hold space for the fullness of it. But when I was losing my own loved one, I noticed that I would almost bypass their fears. Like, no, 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 it's going to be okay. No, no, no. Like, you look
Mm,
like you're sure. And for me, with my most recent loss, if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't have tried to rush past that, the fears and the questions, to say it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. So maybe it's not going to be okay, and maybe, of course, on a higher level it is, right? But that's not how that person is feeling. So what I learned through that process of the contrast of being a professional versus being a person going,
mm-hmm.
is to really be present to what that person is feeling, to allow them the space to share all the things, and to make sure you're tending to yourself enough outside of those times so that you have the capacity for it, because you're going through all of your own feelings at the very same time, right? And to know that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay. It's okay for somebody to see that you're emotional. You don't have to bottle that up either, right? You don't have to try and be strong for the sake of somebody not feeling your emotion, because them feeling that emotion also allows them to feel the depth of your love. And there was a documentary that I watched recently, Andrea Gibson and Megan Foley, called Come See Me in the Good Light. And Andrea Gibson was diagnosed with a terminal illness and they recently passed. But the documentary was so powerful. And in the documentary, at one point, they were crying, and their partner said to them, "Are you crying because of love?" And Andrea said, "Yeah, that's it. Like, that's why we cry. We cry in those times because of all the love." So if we can allow that as much as possible, I think that that in itself is healing, and reminding ourselves, so yeah, I'm crying because of love.
I love it. And I feel like this can be also, well, applied, not the right word, once our loved ones have crossed and are on the other side as well. That, of course, we do get the sad tears because of missing the physical presence of the person, but then we can also realize that some of the tears are happy tears because of the infinite love that we have for that particular person that's now not in the physical space. Oh, I've lost you. Um, are we still here? I can't see you. Let me see. Oh, we are back. Technical aspect of that podcast. I've just been laughing to Celeste that every time there are our loved ones on the other side are trying to bring our attention, then they interfere with equipment. But we're back, so we can carry on with that beautiful conversation. Hmm. Do you think we could talk now about change and hope? I'm
Yeah.
just curious whether we can talk about that. And it doesn't have to be, I know I'm still like in my mind tying it a change as when we lose the physical presence of our loved ones. But I feel like in general, um, as human beings, we need so much support with uncertainty and not knowing what's going to happen. So I'm just curious if you can speak about anything that pops into your mind when I've just mentioned hope and change.
Yeah. I think
Mm.
sometimes we really try to hang on to how things were, to how things used to look, to how they used to be. And we can sometimes shame ourselves, like, as we have children, it's not the same as it used to be. We can't necessarily show up in the same ways at all the same times. We can't necessarily be the same friend that we were before our children were there, or be available in the same ways, right? And we can shame ourselves and feel that we need to still be who we were. And so I'm really been embracing the idea that maybe I'm not supposed to be that same version of me that I was before, because life is not the same. Life is continuing to change me. It's continuing to move through me. And if I hold on, trying to keep myself where I was or how I was, that's when I feel some type of inner turmoil, or that's when I feel some type of physical symptom that feels unbearable, because there's this resistance inside of me versus the allowing of maybe it's not supposed to look how it looked before. How would it feel good now? What matches who I am now, and how can I love this, continuing to meet the becoming of myself?
And for anyone who feels inside their, well, I keep hearing intuition, anyone who feels in their gut that, oh, they are really enjoying becoming that new version of themselves, or that version that's so authentic, but they still care about what other people think about them. Because, of course, people attach labels or meanings or what they think we should be. So yeah, I think it can be challenging maybe for people who are sensitive
Mhm.
to really allow themselves to be that true version of themselves in order to maybe not hurt their friends or loved ones. How do you encourage your clients to just embrace the change, but also be okay with other people not being okay with us being
Mhm.
ourselves?
Little by little, I think, right? It's people very much, some people, not all people, will want to keep us how we were. They'll have a version of us in their mind, and that's who they think we always are. So, for example, my mother still gives me gifts that I appreciated and loved when I was a 12-year-old girl, but they're no longer my interests anymore. And she has a really hard time seeing who I am now and meeting this current version of myself. So, for me, it's been a lot of um, allowing her to be who she is, and making sure that I have enough people in my life who are able to continue to meet the evolving me, and same with me for them. Like, can we meet each other new every day and love each other as we continue to grow and evolve? And I think it's important that everybody has some of those people in their lives, even one person in your life who you feel safe to completely be who you are with and share, knowing that you're safe to share even your ideas and your dreams with somebody who's not going to doubt it, who's not going to think that that doesn't belong in your life when your soul is guiding you. To trust that, right? And to have people who say, even if it's yourself who's saying it to yourself, you know what's the best step for you. You know what's the next right thing for you. You can trust yourself. And it can be an isolating process sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there needs to be some walking away, even energetically, from the ties that bind us to that opinion of others or the judgment of others. And sometimes there's a space, this in between space. For me, I knew it was many years ago before I started my naturopathic practice. There was this time in which I knew that I had to walk away from certain relationships and friendships. And I didn't know if anything would come to fill that space, if I would ever meet a kindred spirit, if I would ever have relationships that were with people that I loved as much as I loved those people. And so it was this emptiness, and being in that emptiness can feel really vulnerable and scary because there's uncertainty. But there is also so much healing and so much strengthening internally that comes from making hard choices that feel right, and understanding that the choices that feel right doesn't mean that they're easy. So not that we have to let go of everybody or anything like that, but we'll know
Mm-hmm.
who we need to invest more time with and who we maybe need to spend a little bit less time with, and what voices are loudest in our head, and how can we meet those with love, with compassion, with tenderness? Do we need support through that? Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a therapist or a coach or a healer of some sort to hold that space for us, so that we have the courage to do whatever it is we're feeling pulled to do, whether that be setting certain boundaries or having certain conversations, or putting ourselves out there, knowing we don't know how people are going to react. We don't know what they're going to
Mm-hmm.
say, but we know this is what's right for us. And as we do it, it does get easier. The courage sort of, I feel like, builds this system of threads through our system that creates this strength, and we start to be less affected. We start to become more sturdy inside of ourselves, more sturdy with the supports that we put in place for ourselves, so that things that might have completely shaken us in the past, completely tore us down, or stopped us for months, now might just be something that we're processing for a day or two. Maybe it
Mm.
eventually will become something that we realize has nothing to do with us. And so we're able to just, what comes, it goes. Oh, that's not mine.
Mm. Do you think self trust and self love are some of the, well, I want to say components that might help a person to really step into their courageous self, and how can we start trusting ourselves, for those who have no idea, or they have not been listening to themselves, or maybe they are not aware what's mine, what's other people's, which voices are mine. Yeah, anything that you would like to talk about that.
Yeah, I think everybody's different, but for me, there's a couple of ways that I do that. And one is writing. Sometimes when I
Mm.
write things down, I see it differently. You can actually see it on paper, even just those internal voices that you're hearing. And when you see it, sometimes it's very clear to you if it's yours or it's somebody else's, because you're just looking at it slightly differently. So that can be one thing that really helps, to just jot down things that are coming up to you, and then check in with yourself. Do a little bit of breathing or a little bit of being in nature, whatever it is that you feel reconnects you to yourself, and then revisit that and ask yourself, is that mine or is that true? And what is my truth? What is mine? And then write on the other side. So if you imagine a page with two columns, you write on the other side what your soul says. Um, and you start to find this compassionate voice coming through that allows you to recognize a different way of speaking, a different way of being, a different way of thinking about things. And I think in terms of the trusting yourself, it's just one small choice at a time, whether it be saying no to an event that you are feeling obligated to go to, and yet what you know you really need is that time to yourself tonight, for example, to really rest or be nourished or go for a walk, whatever it is. And you make that one small choice, and people might be disappointed or upset, but you get comfortable over time with disappointing people, and people start to learn, especially if we've been uh, a version of ourselves in the past and not our full self. Sometimes people have come to expect that we'll abandon ourselves, or that we will always prioritize other people or other things over ourselves. And so they learn that that's how we are, and they come to just expect it unconsciously. And as we start to be
Mm.
more of who we are, they are going to see that and they're going to think, well, you've changed, but really it's just we're being more us. And so they need that time and space to adapt, or not, to who they see that we're choosing to be. But as we do, say, make that choice, we build trust in ourselves, because we build that relationship with ourselves on the inside that says, I hear you, I honor you, and I'm going to protect you. I'm going to do what I know you need right now, even if it's hard. And we're going to be okay
Mm.
with that.
Mm. So do you think setting boundaries is an expression of self-love?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's community love too. It's love for the relationships that we have, because we've been so conditioned that sacrificing yourself and having no boundaries is what love is.
Mm.
That just creates this imbalance in a relationship, and that's not loving to either person. On one scenario, I mean, it has you suppressing or denying what your needs are, and then at some point that catapults into something, whether it be feeling mentally unwell, feeling emotionally spiritual unwell, or having physical symptoms that we feel, now our body is trying so hard to get our attention, because there's been this lack of capacity or energy to listen. And not through any fault, just because this is what especially women are taught to do in society: suppress, suppress, suppress. It's about others. And so when we take a stand for ourselves, it's not only loving ourselves, but it's loving that person, because they get that mirror. Oh, she can take time for herself tonight. wow, I could take time for myself this next time.
Mm.
I don't really want to do that. Or I said yes, but that doesn't feel good. Maybe I'll say no. Maybe I'll or you see somebody fulfilling their dreams and going out there, and maybe they're a speaker and you see them and you feel like, I really want to do that. You feel that resonance with it. And so their courage, their trust in themselves gives you courage, gives you the possibility in your awareness that you could trust yourself too. You could do whatever it is that's calling you to, right? And you have the opportunity to rise up rather than feeling carried and feeling small. So it's that, for me, it's like when I feel not good enough, that's what I'm resonating into the world. Even if I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually teaching them, well, they're not good enough either. They have to sacrifice themselves too.
Mm-hmm. And I love what you talked about, that mirror effect. And in a way, it feels to me, I don't want to say the word duty, but the word duty comes to my mind. It's our duty to love ourselves. I'll find a better word. But the more we love ourselves and the more we are compassionate towards ourselves and we allow ourselves to heal, it almost feels like we are mirroring back and allowing the other person also to love themselves, or maybe be more compassionate. And but at the soul level, I feel it's like our souls are really trying to put us in that discomfort mode for our growth and to help other people to really elevate. I'm just curious about um yeah, well, I have various thoughts. I want to talk about the body. Like, what can our bodies tell us, and why are we not listening to our bodies, and how do you help your clients with any physical, or not only physical, symptoms?
Yeah, I really feel like our bodies are so brilliant at being an ally to our soul. They just will fight for us to no end. And I noticed early on, um, I would start to feel physically ill when I was doing something that was really out of alignment, or allowing a relationship, or allowing or not upholding a boundary. I would start to express it physically. And for me, our bodies are, um, I don't want to frame it in a way that it's anybody's fault. It's more like if we look at our body as our friend, whispering in our ear, being a messenger, helping to communicate. Oh, my heart's hurting right now. What's that about? What's hurting my heart? There's a tightness in my chest. That's information. So for me, with my clients, our bodies can help to inform everything from our business decision to the strategies that feel right for us, because the online world is noisy. And having a business, there are so many people that will tell us, you need to do this, you need to do that, right? It has to be this way. And our bodies, to me, have the final say. Does it feel right inside, or do you feel um, it's different for everybody. For me, I get like a tightness when it feels not aligned. I get an expansiveness when it feels right. And there may still be nervousness there. There may still be fear, because maybe that thing that's right is a vulnerable step for you. But overall, you'll feel a sense of either internal steadiness or internal turmoil, tightness, tension. Um, just guiding. So sometimes I get people to write a letter to their body. So say, for example, for me, it's been my thyroid. To communicate with my thyroid, I might write a letter to my thyroid and say everything that I want to say to it. And then I take the pen and I write, Dear Celeste. And I write through a letter from my thyroid to myself. What is it
Mm.
wanting to say to me?
Mm.
Can just help to bring some things to light. And it's not always clear. Sometimes it's like walking in mud, right? It's hard to figure out what is it saying, but there will be little clues that guide us slightly. And as we listen, we notice slight shifts, or we can start to become aware, for example, when do I experience this most? Or what were the precursor events
Mm-hmm.
led? and we make our own kinds of connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for any business owners, how can we, I'm including myself as well, how can we run our businesses? Again, I don't like the word run, but yeah, how can we run our businesses with soul?
Mm. I think it's very much allowing ourselves to take everything we think we need to do and filter it through ourselves. So I like to do it in the morning where I write down my list of everything I feel I need to do for my business. And then I take some time to really focus on, okay, what is the life that I'm imagining for myself? What are my desires? How do I want life to feel on a day-to-day basis? How do I want work to feel? And then re-looking at that list and asking myself, okay, now that I'm tapped into how I want life and business to feel, which one of these are a match? And there may be several things that maybe seem logical, like we should do them or we need to do them, but there are things that are meant for us that are our pathway. For example, I have one client who she very much felt that YouTube was the platform she needed to be on, and she didn't feel guided to be on Instagram or on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, or any energy there. And she really trusted herself, and she went all in one place. And she's thriving. She's doing so well. So
Mm.
she could have spent years saying, no, 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 no. People say you have to be here. People say you have to be there. People say I also have to do this, but she knew at the end of the day which way was the way for her. So I think it's just hearing that and trusting it. And I've even had one business coach that I worked with, and I shared something I was feeling compelled to do for my business, which is sharing. So for my business, I like to weave in the soul and the
Mm-hmm.
strategy because it's
Mm-hmm.
right. Like I used to be a Reiki master, and I used to be, the nurse and the naturopath. So those things are such a part of who I am, and I love to weave them into my work. And I remember telling her, I want to share with people that this is also a part of what they get when they work with me. And she's like, I don't recommend you do that. Like, that's too out there for people. And she really was against it. But for me,
Yeah.
I have a bit of a rebellious spirit. So when somebody tells me it's
Mm.
not a good idea, I think, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I can
So
relate.
yeah. So I did it, and it just was like freedom because I didn't have to try
Mm.
and only be one thing. I got to express all the parts of myself and build a business that felt so much more joyful than it would have been if I just had tried to stay in this narrow line of business coaching, for example, for me, wouldn't have felt good.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk more about being that soulful business coach? How do you guide with both softness and strategy, or what are, I don't want to say the most common things, but what are the things that you have helped your clients with? Any, I guess every transformation will be inspiring, but anything that you would like to share with us?
I think the big thing that I tend to help them with is visibility. So it's that feeling of I could never go on camera, I could never be on video, or I don't have enough to share, or why are people going to want to see me? To then getting the courage to do their first video, getting the courage to show up and start to share, and then see that how that ripples out and see how then they start to touch other people's lives. And it's this most beautiful thing because at the beginning they were hidden, and now they're out there sharing their gifts, making a difference in the world, the difference they were born to make just by being who they are. So I think that's the big thing. And working through those vulnerabilities, working through that self-trust of like, okay, I'm feeling like I want to do this, but it's really scary. Maybe even they're shaking at first. And so holding space for them, but also weaving in some of the energy healing, weaving in some of the, how can we tend to your spirit as you
Mm,
rise up in your business?
mm. Beautiful. And how can people work with you? Can you talk more about your programs, your mentorship, and your offerings? I would love to hear. about it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, of course. I have a group program called Thrive. That's one of my favorite ways to work with people because it's so accessible to people. So, for that, we have 2 group coaching calls a month, and then they get access to the courses that are in the back end. It's a Soulful Business School, and Shine is a program to help people getting started with being on video, and a course in Canva to teach people the aspects of creating digital products and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite is just actually being in person with people, seeing them face to face on
Mm-hmm.
camera and being able to walk through whatever there is that week, whatever there is that month for that steadiness of accountability and support. And then, of course, people can work with me one on one. I take a few coaching clients every few months, and I enjoy working that way too. And I always have offerings that I put out there for either courses or toolkits or things like that that people can take.
Thank you. And finally, what's the final message that you would like to leave the viewers and listeners with?
Hmm. I would say whatever is that thing that you have right here in your solar plexus that's just nudging you, where you feel like you want to do it, you feel you're meant to do it, it's part of your path. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. And if you can, just put your hand on your solar plexus and your heart every day and do some breathing. Start to visualize what it is that you're dreaming of and imagine it as if it's your life right now. And just take one step. Don't worry about how it's all going to happen. It might feel far away, it might feel hard to attain, but one step by one step is going to get you there, and feeling that alignment, that gratitude inside of yourself, knowing it's happening.
Thank you so much. And finally, where can people find you? And I'm going to include all of the links in the description of
Yeah.
this podcast.
I'm on Instagram at Celeste Frenette. That's my personal account that I share my writing and stuff in. And I just started a brand new Instagram account called The Soulful
Okay.
Business Coach. There I'm going to be sharing, or I am sharing, business tips plus some soulful strategy and alignment sort of things. And I'm on YouTube, Celeste Frenette, as well, and on Facebook under the same.
Thank you, Celeste, for opening your heart and for coming to the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so
Thank,
much for being here.
thank you so much, Marta. This was such a joy.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to all of the viewers and listeners. Goodbye, everyone. Bye bye.